Hi everyone, welcome to the Founders Talk webinar series here at Flame University. My name is Darshan Doshi. I'm the director for the Center for Entrepreneurship and Innovation. I have with me Madhuri Kanetkar. She is heading operations at the Center for Entrepreneurship, and our guest speaker, advisor, mentor, and an inspiration for me, Ajay Bhagwat. So very quickly, we started Founders Talk last July in the middle of the pandemic because we thought because of technology, we could, reach and get people such as Ajay on a Zoom call, get their insights, get their experiences, their expertise, and in a very short format within an hour, try and get maybe 3 or 4 insights on a particular topic. So whether that is entrepreneurship, whether that's product development, whether that's investments, so all things entrepreneurship, right? So within that discipline, we've tried to tackle various topics within them. It could even be family business, next generation entrepreneurs. A couple of weeks from now, we have Narayanan Murlidharan, who manages investments for the Patni family office. So how do family offices look at startups as an asset class? So that's going to be brought into perspective. We've recorded all of these videos. You'll find it on the Flame University YouTube channel. Madhuri, if you could just add those links to Founders Talk in the chat. I think those who are interested could take a look at that.
Yeah.
So today, we very fortunate to have Ajay Bhagwat join us for this Founders Talk. I'm going to do a quick introduction and a formal one, if you don't mind, Ajay. But personally, whenever I've met him, I've got a lot more energy and I've got a lot more insights, and just his work ethic, the discipline, the energy level is something which is very contagious and makes me want to do more. Right, he's just flown in last night from the US, and he's still doing this session for us. So thanks a lot for making this as a priority. Really appreciate it.
Sure, my pleasure, Darshan.
Thank you. So a quick introduction. Ajay has been given multiple awards, such as the Entrepreneur of the Year Award, Excellence in Entrepreneurship Award by Entrepreneurs International. He is the founder and the managing director of Renu Electronics, which is headquartered in Pune, but has offices in US, Europe, and Singapore. This is a company which is one of the first in India to be in the global products business. And what we mean by product is a physical product, an engineering, electronic, electrical product rather than technology product, which has been a leader in the industry. Under his leadership, Renu Electronics has been awarded the best company in electronics by State of Maharashtra several times. He's been on various boards such as KPIT Cummins, Electronica Mechatronics, Prizm Electronics, amongst many others. He is graduated from IIT Bombay and the University of Iowa in United States. He still is very passionate and spends a lot of time with IIT Bombay, whether that includes Sur Bahar, which is the musical evening that IIT Bombay organizes, or whether it's the entrepreneurship cell. He's one of the founding charter members of TIE, which is the Indus Entrepreneurs. It's a global organization. I'm a fellow member over here at TIE. And it is, one of those places which nurtures entrepreneurship, supports early stage, late stage entrepreneurs, and just trying to bring people together who want to do something about starting a business. He's also the chairman of Electronics Committee at the Maharashtra Chamber of Commerce, MCCIA. Lots, I mean, it's a laundry list of activities and initiatives that you've been a part of and where you've contributed with. There's a lot that I and the audience can learn from you. But today wanted to really focus on one thing, technology in India gets a lot of attention. The software industry has, through the 90s, 2000s, 2010s, really kind of been the focus of attention, and manufacturing, which still is the core or traditional businesses, right? SMEs, MSMEs still contribute about 70% of India's GDP. So in that field, you've created very innovative products built from India for the world. And that's what I really want to talk about, and really looking forward to learning from you. Because, we've got at Flame University, we have a lot of students, undergrad, postgrad students who come from family businesses, traditional family businesses. Then in our one-year postgraduate program in entrepreneurship, we have a few students who want to start businesses either in renewable energy, clean energy, or manufacturing, which are not necessarily tech oriented, right? So I thought, who better person than you, who's built not just a great product or a series of products, but a brand around this, which is from Pune to the world, right? And what does that take? How do you go about it? You're a product person at heart, but you've built a business on top of it, right? Many people are not able to graduate from building products to a business. So would love to hear your thoughts. And folks, there is a Q&A button right at the bottom. While Ajay walks us through a presentation and his experience, would love to hear from you. Put in your questions. I'll bring it to Ajay. We're going to have enough time to ask, to have an interaction with Ajay and get his thoughts, which are much more specific to your questions. But maybe, just want to open it up to Ajay with this context. And again, thank you for joining us today. It's all yours. Please, feel free to share your presentation.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Darshan. Thank you for the kind words. It's difficult to sense that people have, especially you have high opinion about me. It's good to hear that, because we always pull each other's legs all the time. So that's always, it's good to know that formally you would say that, okay, there is something that you get inspired from. It's good to hear that. So one quick question for you, Darshan. The audience is typically younger entrepreneurs, students want to be entrepreneurs, or what kind of?
Great question. So we have, I see some very regular people joining us on our founders talk. So we have, I think, 3 or 4 types, right? We have students who are UG and PG students who have taken entrepreneurship as a minor or a major, or are part of the 1-year postgraduate program in entrepreneurship. So these are people who are already thinking about or working on a project which could turn into a product. The second category is we have a decent group of people who have started a business, but they've started within the last 12 to 18 months. And then we have educators who are entrepreneurship educators who are associated with either Flame University or any of the other universities around the country. So that's essentially, the 3 main categories that we have with us.
Okay. So what I'll do is I'll just share my screen, and let me figure this out. Okay. So I'll share my screen here, and just let me know when you see it.
Yes.
Just let me know. Okay. So I've just made a very simple presentation. Didn't really want to keep the slides busy at all, but just to keep the conversation going. I'll basically speak more about the points that I've written in the presentation, and maybe we'll actually spend more time in answering questions, because there would be a lot of if there are any questions about what's the next step, etc., I'll be happy to talk about that. And the way I would structure this is I'll quickly start with our story that basically tells how we became what we call as a product company. Then I'll talk about what exactly is a product company. What do we mean by being a product company in the first place? Because it's sexy to say that we are a product company whether you are or not. So let's try to demystify what is the meaning of that. Then I'll just talk about a few success factors. So what does it take to be a successful product company? What are the factors that we have seen from our experience? And then let's talk about what next. So what do we need to do to build a product company? So let's just build it on that. I think we have about I'll say about 30 minutes. I'll talk and then we'll open it for Q&A. Is that okay?
That sounds perfect. Thank you.
Okay, good. So I'll just start with our usual disclaimers. I mean, this is something that we do a lot of presentations on behalf of TiE Pune about scaling up businesses, about implementing strategy, etc. And this is a standard thing that I always talk about, that there is no silver bullet. So if somebody tells you that here is what you do and you'll be successful, whether it's a product business or otherwise, or implementation of your strategy, don't believe it. Don't believe that there's a silver bullet. What worked for me will not work for you. What works for you will not work for me. You hope it does, but it may not. So let's remember that. This is a very important thing that you should keep in mind. And I'm essentially sharing from my own experience. And as Darshan mentioned, that I've been part of the TiE Pune community for many years. And I was responsible for the mentorship program at TiE Pune, and also was then part of the co-founding team of the very famous Nurture program of TiE Pune, in which we actually do a structured mentorship program that goes over 9 to 10 months. So in the course of this last 10-15 years, I've probably seen over several hundred companies, and worked with them, tried to mentor them and so on. And there's a lot that I learned in the process. Okay, so there's a lot that I learned by talking to those companies. So what I'm going to discuss today is largely from our own experience, as well as from the learnings from this talking to these companies. However, these learnings are not domain or business specific at all. So what I'm going to say, I may be giving examples from our industry, but quite frankly, none of those learnings are domain specific. The learnings are common across industries, across domains, across the kind of businesses, etc. And last but not the least, of course, when we go through such presentations and such conversations, I would really urge you to just keep your eyes open and apply the concepts. But always check and track your progress and see what has to be done to do a corrective action for sure. So let me begin with our story. So essentially, when I was a student, when I was doing my master's in the US, I had an idea about what I should be doing in my career, and I always wanted to be an entrepreneur. Always wanted to do something of my own. And I was told, unlike the kind words that Darshan you used, I was told that I'm a very difficult person to work with and maybe work for. So I realized that I'll probably be a pretty bad employee, no matter whether I work for myself or work for somebody else. So might as well make life easy for the other people and not work for anybody. So I said, okay, I'm going to start my own company. Having said that, of course, what that company should do was not clear. So luckily, as I was spending time in the US during at the time I was doing my master's at University of Iowa and then at UIUC, I kept my eyes open to just see around what's happening. And I came across some situations, like for example, I used to build control panels for many different customers. And I realized that all those control panels look different based on what was the controller used inside. So forget about the technical jargon I'm using here, But the important thing is I realized that the machine that I was selling or building used to look different based on what's inside, because the user interface on those machines depended on what's inside the machine controlling it. And I said to myself, man, that's a lot of work for a company like a company that builds machines, because they have to do different documentation, different manuals and support, etc. Because the operator only operates using what are the instruments given outside on the control panel. So why can't we build something that will work with all the globally available controllers then? So that was an idea, So I had no clue whether that would work or not. So I thought about a concept that let's build one unit that can communicate with all the globally available controllers. So I said, okay, let's see if that can work or not. So I had that idea. So I said, okay, I'm going to build a product around this idea. And I did. I came back to India, by the way, and started building this product around the idea over a period of time. And I'll go through this very quickly, but it took me about 9 to 10 years to build any manufacturing line to produce this product. So I'll talk about what exactly we did in the meanwhile, and I still claim that we are a products company, but I'll talk about the fact that we did not manufacture for many years. Created a customer base and channel to sell, supporting the products, growing the product line. This is all we did. Now the real question is, so are we a product company? So does this mean we are a products company? Just to go back in timeline, I started designing the product. I was pretty much all alone, sat in my own room, used to develop something, write some code, build a product around that idea. Now I had no clue how to manufacture. I was just fresh out of college, no clue how to manufacture, no clue how to sell. But the idea was interesting. So what I did was I actually went to a few companies, one in the US, one in Holland, and one in Germany. And I mentioned that this is my idea, this is what I want to build. Now, I don't know how to sell these products worldwide, but if I build this IP, would you sell it? Because they had similar products that they built, but not the common platform that I was trying to build myself. So, and all of them said, yeah, sure, sounds like an interesting idea, and we will be happy to sell. So that solved my problem immediately, because I said, well, now that you're saying that you're interested in selling it, let me tell you, I cannot manufacture it. I don't have any to manufacture. I'm all by myself. So would you manufacture it? So they said, all right, we'll manufacture it as well. So that was, an interesting development, because now I did not have to do anything in manufacturing right away. Secondly, they came with their own customer base, for my idea. So it was my concept, my product, their customers, their channels in the beginning. But I was very clear right from day one that eventually I want to make it myself, because quite frankly, I wanted to make sure that we would control the product ourselves. That means the quality, the costing, etc. All of that needed to be under my control. So I knew very well that I was going to set up a manufacturing line by myself. I also knew very well that we will sell the products in our own brand to our own channels very soon. But it was a good enough way to get started. And guess what? I actually took advance from them so that it funded my product development. And I'm saying all this because these are the questions that I'm sure a lot of people are going to ask me eventually, that how do you fund it? How do you get started, etc., etc. I'm just giving all these secrets right up front. And I would say something interesting, that if you have an idea and if you think you can build a product around that idea, and if you have strong conviction that it is a sellable product and idea, you'll be surprised how many people come forward to help you with whatever it is that you don't have. Okay. But I'll also talk about later on what are the things that could have stopped us from succeeding. Okay. So I'm just going to stop here with our story and ask a question. I mean, are we really a product company? So let's get into that. What exactly is a product company? During the mentorship sessions that I've had with many companies, I've come across several companies who think that they are a product company. So for example, recently I came across a company that was essentially doing product development for somebody else, and they said they are a products company. And this particular one was a software company. They said that I only offer services to product companies, and they started claiming that they're a product company. And I kind of said that, no, sorry, you're not a product company. You're actually a services company supporting a product company. Now, it's unfortunate, by the way, that there's a lot of what shall we say, stigma, at the same time fame to using the term product company. So some people think calling themselves a product company is a good thing to do. Some people say it's not. But this differentiation is important if you want to build a company that has the DNA of a product company. And I'll come to that during the later part of my presentation. Some key questions that you have to ask. Who is accountable for IP? Now, please note that I did not say who is developing the IP, okay? Who is accountable for it, So you have an idea. I mean, just like in my case, I had an idea and I also had the capability myself to build the IP, so I did. But I did not have the capability to manufacture. So the second question is, who is accountable for product delivery? In my case, I was not accountable for, I was accountable, but I was not doing the product delivery myself. Somebody else was manufacturing. Similarly, I could also outsource some of the IP development. I could also outsource some of the product development and yet be a product company. But the key question is, who is accountable for it? Who takes the responsibility when something fails, something doesn't work, something that doesn't function the way you want? It doesn't matter whether you're getting it outsourced or not, whether you're doing it in-house. The question is, a product company is always accountable for the IP it delivers, for the product it delivers. The product company may not manufacture it itself, but that product company is accountable for the delivery of the product. The buck stops with you. You cannot say that my subcontractor made this mistake, so it's okay. No, you cannot say that. So Apple cannot say that, oh, Foxconn screwed up and there is a scratch on the screen, so that's okay. It's Foxconn's problem, but it is Apple's problem, no matter what. Okay. Another big differentiation also is that who is defining what is in the product? What is the product that I'm selling? I think this is one of the things that I'll cover later on in my presentation. Many companies in India I've found which really lack this particular capability is in defining what the product should have in the first place. What should it do? What kind of functionality, what kind of features, what technology, what form factor, what design, etc., etc. And this is one thing that is the skill set that the product company must absolutely have. So if you think you're a product company, you look for these skills in your company. If they don't exist, you're not a product company. Essentially, you're then doing what somebody else tells you to do, and don't call yourself a product company then. And the fourth, and again, a very important aspect is who knows the customer. Keep in mind that I talked about defining the product. Now, you can't define a product unless you know the customer, unless you have some ability to understand who the customer is, what is the customer looking for, what do they want, and how does my product deliver that. So this fundamental knowledge base is a must for a product company. Of course, there are many other things. I'm not even covering things like who is funding what, where, and so on and so forth. I think I'm not even going for all of that. I'm not going for anything in any discussions about the patents and quality and brand. Right now, I'm not going anywhere. I'm just saying, for you to be a product company, these are the things that you must absolutely have. If you don't have it, you're not a product company. Okay, and I'll give you many examples of the companies in and around Pune or even in all the domestic market here. There are quite a few people who are very good at building what you tell them to build. You know, for the sake of our discussions today, I would basically call them not being a product company. Okay, and there are a few things I'll cover later on that differentiates this between those companies and a product company. So what are the considerations? Clearly, I talked about the idea. You know, now do you have the technology to convert that idea into a product? Now, again, as I said earlier, just because I belong to the field of electronics and factory automation, healthcare, IoT, home automation, etc., I don't want to limit the use of the word technology as applicable to electronics. You know, this applies anywhere. You could be making buckets, you know, plastic buckets, or you could be making ball pens, or you could be making a food product. You could be making all of that, you know, any of that. The key question is, do you have what it takes to convert that idea into a product? This is a very important consideration because that defines what kind of company you need to build. Now, even if you are outsourcing the technology development, you still have to manage that technology development, and that is a key, what shall we say, differentiator you must have in your company. Because if you don't have the necessary knowledge of how to manage and outsource technology development, you will still not be able to succeed. And I've seen time and again that a lot of companies have come up, okay, I have this idea, let me talk to a good company to develop the technology. But in the end, it doesn't work because they don't have the capability to even assess whether the technology that was built was right or not. They don't have capability to assess whether it was appropriately priced or not, etc., and sustainable or not, all of the above. I talked about product management just a few minutes ago. An interesting debate that I always hear is how come India doesn't produce product companies, you know? And very interestingly, I was speaking at a large management college institute recently in Pune. So I don't want to name the college, but it's a very reputed and large college. And I was talking about entrepreneurship to their ESL group. And just before that, having lunch with the dean of the college. And as always, the conversation started, you know, oh, India doesn't produce product companies. There are very few companies which have their products that are sold globally, etc., you know. So I asked this person, so what kind of things do you support in your management institute? What kind of programs do you have? So he said, oh, we have business management, we have HR, we have finance management. And I asked him, how come you're not offering a course in product management? Can I get a degree? Can I be an MBA in product management? And he looked so blank. It's like, what the heck is that? You know, what is an MBA in product management? And I said, well, sir, did you get an answer to the question that you asked a few minutes ago about how come India does not produce product companies? Because this is one thing that is completely missing in our culture, in our upbringing, and so on. And in contrast, I've seen that, especially in Europe, somehow it is natural to them. You know, somehow when a child buys a toy in Europe, before he buys the next toy, he thinks about how it can work with the existing toy that he has, for example. You know, and here, unfortunately, in India, we do not have this community or we don't have what we call as product management as a faculty. You know, and that shows in the lack of our abilities to build great quality products. You know? So some of these things, some of these skills, some people are born with, but as a company, even within our company, we have had to spend time in training capable people in learning product management for success. You know? And of course, the consideration about delivery. How do you finally deliver the product? And that basically means, do you have your own manufacturing line? Do you have your own systems in place to whatever it is that you have developed? Can you deliver it? And there are, of course, a lot of considerations which I'm not going to talk about today. Many parameters are important in defining whether you're doing good delivery of the product or not. So there are techniques available. Like, are you manufacturing properly? Do you implement lean in your manufacturing systems, etc., etc.? How are you managing quality? How are you managing on-time delivery? How are you managing inventory? Can somebody buy it from stock or not? Is there a lead time? All those kind of things are also important considerations for being a product company. Now, clearly, some products, some domains, some industries, the considerations will be slightly different from others. As an example, if I'm going to buy a food product, if I'm going to buy potato chips, I want to go to a shop and buy them right now. I don't want to wait 6 weeks to get that product. But if I want to buy a light bulb, well, I go to a shop and buy it. But if I want to order something that is industrial, if I want to buy a machine, well, customers are happy to wait 6 weeks, 8 weeks for that machine to be delivered. So the considerations in each one of these, whether the delivery consideration, technology considerations, are different for different products. So you have to basically figure out what is the relevance of these considerations in your own idea, in your own product space, in your own industry, and they may be different. But the fact that all four are important remains across the industry. The level to which that you need to comply may be different, but each one of them is still important. So I'm going to talk about the success factors, and I'll just give some examples as we go along in defining what this means. So I'll talk about scalability of the product. So what is scalability for a product? Clearly, I mean, I would say that for you to be in a product business, you must have the relevant scale for that product. Say, for example, if you're manufacturing a television, if you can't pick a number like 200,000, 500,000 or a million of them, you don't have the scale. But if you're manufacturing, say, a laser cut machine, if you don't manufacture 200 or 500 of them, you don't have the scale. So it is different for different markets. If you're making potato chips, if you don't make like 10 million a month, you may not have the scale. But what is important in a product business is to identify the revenue level for break even. And what I mean by that is typically, unlike a service business, the product business will always have overheads that are associated with development of the product, managing the product, running the business unit, and so on and so forth. So there are significantly different levels of fixed expenses for a product business compared to a service business. I'm not suggesting that the service business does not have all the overheads. It also has, but you must analyze for your own product business the levels of overheads that you must be able to sustain to be successful in this. And the scale of the product must absolutely support those revenue levels as a minimum for break even. Okay. A common mistake that I have seen in many companies is that the cost of supporting the product is not considered in the break even calculation. So I'll give an example. Let's say, I mean, in our own business, we actually make industrial products that go on machines. Okay. Now our products are sold to companies which make packaging machines, companies which make textile machines, cement plants, steel mills, pump panels, whatever you have, all different types of applications. Now, as a company, I make my product, but I have no clue about the nitty-gritties of the industries I just talked about. I mean, if somebody tells me that use your product and control a boiler, when I don't know anything about controlling a boiler, but I'm making products that have the relevant technologies in it, relevant tools in it, that somebody can control a boiler from it. The same product, exactly the same product, mind you, could actually be used to control a pump panel. No, I don't know anything about controlling a pump panel, but I built sufficient technologies in my product, sufficient tools, and I have a configurator in my product that allows you to control a boiler using that product, also allows you to control a pump panel, or allows you to control an elevator, or allows you to control a packaging machine or whatever. Now, why I'm saying all of this is that the monkey is on the integrator's back or customer's back. I'm actually selling a product. I'm not selling a solution that does the end product. Because if I started doing that, imagine that I'm going to have expertise in all the different industries that I serve. Of course, I know enough about those industries so that I can build the necessary things, necessary tools that are required in my product to be able to support the industries. But I would never ever claim the responsibility of providing the final solution. That solution is something that my customer will provide, my integrator will provide, or the customer's integrator will provide. And that's how I get the scale. Many companies came even in Pune after I started my business to do something similar. But this is one fundamental mistake they made, is that they didn't realize that if you start developing a solution, you are in a different kind of business altogether. You know, we are making the electronics, we are making the products for that industry, and we have necessary configurators that the customers themselves can use to do their own application on top of it. Just like Microsoft makes operating systems, if they started making applications, all the applications that the world makes that run on PCs, they will go crazy. They will never be successful. And so just like Oracle makes an ERP, they could care less where the ERP gets used, and the actual usage is defined by the integrators and the people who implement. Oracle is a very happy product company. SAP is a very happy product company, and so on and so forth. So the cost of supporting is important, because the higher level of integration you do inside your product, building the technologies and the configurators, lower will be the cost of supporting it in the field, because you don't have to know everything that the customer wants to get done. The customer can do it himself. You know, that is one important aspect that we have seen. Another success factor that is very critical, and Darshan, you talked about this as a global business, okay? I believe that globality is an important aspect in the business today. You know, you may sell the product locally, but the product must be global. This is one thing that I believe I did right on day one. You know, even today, we operate in multiple different business units. We do many, many different things, but none of the products that we design and develop are designed for a particular market. We actually do it for a global market, and it comes with its own baggage, by the way. It's easier said than done. So that essentially means that I have to study the global standards, I have to study the cultural considerations, and so on and so forth. So when we do a particular product, I got to understand what does it mean to sell it in the US? What does it mean to sell it in Europe? What does it mean to sell it in Australia, in New Zealand, in Asia Pacific, in India, in China, etc., etc. You may choose not to meet a particular standard for business reasons, but knowing what standards are required to be able to sell globally is extremely critical. So in our industry, we chose 3 or 4 different standards that are commonly accepted all over the world, and we designed our products to meet those standards. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that we started selling them at all of those markets right away, but whenever the opportunity came, we were ready to sell. Just to give a quick example, very recently we got an opportunity to work for a customer for the oil and gas market. And the fact that we already had the product that was designed to meet the standards required for oil and gas, we were easily able to capture that market, even though in the beginning we did not go in for that market, you know, but the product was designed to meet the standards. Cultural considerations, I don't want to spend any time. You can see very easily that the customers in Europe are very different, customers in US are different, customers in India, even within India, the customers in Delhi are different from customers in Chennai, and so on. These are the considerations that you must absolutely take into account when you design your product. Channel, reaching the customers, OEM, SI representative, geography. I think a lot has been said about that in our TIE master classes. But very important thing that you should understand in product business is to really know what is our business and where we are playing. Okay, so the reaching to the customer sometimes happens in multiple different channels. So I may sell to see, in our case, I may sell to a machine maker, the machine may be sold to somebody else, and the whole thing may be integrated at a totally different place. You got to choose where you want to sell. As an example, in my case, we just had this debate a few days ago that, I mean, there's a large customer right here in town, Tata Motors. Would we want to sell our products to Tata Motors? And I actually, a lot of my team members were very surprised when I said, no, we should not be selling to Tata Motors. We should be selling to people who supply machines to Tata Motors, because Tata Motors will require a lot of support. I mean, what do we know about the machines that they make? We don't want to sell that machine. Our customers will do that, you know. So it's very important to identify who your customer is. Is your customer the end user? Is your customer the influencer? Is your customer the buyer of that product? Is your customer the user of the product? These are the four critical things that you must think about very differently when it comes to product companies. In contrast to that, in services companies, you typically do not have to worry so much about it, because your customer takes care of all of that for you. The person that is paying your bills is taking care of it. In product companies, unfortunately, you have to worry about all these four factors and make sure that the design of your product and whatever you put in technology, etc., supports all these four elements that I just talked about. Again, for want of time, I'm not going to spend much time on geography, but accessing different geographies for products is not trivial. You know, you got to know what it takes for the products to work in a particular geography. And here I will also add something very important that unfortunately many young startups miss on day one, which is the liability considerations of any product that you have, you know, and this is different for different geographies. The kind of product liability considerations I would worry about in the US are different from Europe, from India, and so on. So unless you know what you're liable for when you sell a product in a particular geography, I think I would say that be careful about getting to the geography. I talked about product management, and I would say that this is the biggest cause of why product companies fail. You know, so what I mean by that again is, you know, not knowing how to position a product, not knowing how to brand a product, not knowing what should be there in the product in the first place, what should not be in the product, etc. All that is a function of a product manager. Product manager is like a mother to the product that you're trying to build. Okay, so like just like a mother knows everything about the child, no exceptions, you know, a product manager plays a similar role. And if you don't have that capability, do not venture into a product company. Do not build a product company, because you will fail. Okay, for sure. I mean, you could get lucky, but success will not be repeatable. Building a strong product management capability is an absolute must. And it almost will take a complete 1 hour session to talk about what product management is all about. But in a nutshell, when I said I referred to being a mother to the product, I think that suffices. You know, you should be able to figure out what exactly the product manager is supposed to do. Okay. And of course, there are things like marketing, branding, which is very different. Again, of course, services companies also have to do marketing. Services companies also have to do branding. But here what happens is most product companies will typically end up having multiple product lines, ancillary product lines, and so on and so forth. So branding is very critical for product companies, because your brand becomes synonymous to what is it that you're offering. And many companies like we ourselves, have multiple brands for different products that we sell, and we try to basically brand it differently because the positioning of the product changes significantly based on the way you do the branding. And marketing, again, it's a topic that can easily take an hour to talk about, but I'm sure all of you are aware that marketing is an essence to any product development, any idea, validation, and so on and so forth. And then, of course, once you have the product, creating the market for that, this exercise is very different from the services companies. And that's why I just brought it up. I know I'm running short of time here, so I'm going to go very quickly. Capital, this is the biggest gorilla in the room. Most people say that this is their biggest problem, but I can assure you that if you have the right idea, capital is not the biggest problem that you will have. Okay. Unfortunately, product companies do require a higher capital, fixed capital in business compared to service companies. And also the cash flow is very difficult to manage because a lot of money by definition is spent ahead of time before you start selling anything. So in that sense, managing the capital is a key competency that you should have if you want to build a product company. In my case, I actually was very clear that I was going to build a company based on my customers' money. So I have in my company, I did not go to any angel investor or any venture capitalist and so on. And I was able to raise money from my customers. And I still advise every company that comes to me, hey, try to raise money from your customers first, because that's the biggest validation of your idea and what you're trying to do. So very quickly, what I would think about if I'm trying to build a product company is, do I have the DNA for a product company? Now, what happens is, and I've seen this time and again, that many companies start as a product company, then they realize that they cannot manage the cash flow. Then they say that, okay, by the way, I have this expertise now, let me offer these as services to some company, and try to build some revenue. And whatever revenue I get from that, I will invest in product company. Unfortunately, I have not seen too many success stories in doing this. So if you don't have the heart to stick it out, do not start a product company. As simple as that. So the DNA is very different. DNA for services company is very different, and the two do not typically mix. Similarly, of course, I would think about, can I build a team equally passionate about products? It's not just you, the entire team that is supporting you. Again, very important. Access to market, I already talked about funding it. These are the things I would think about next. And what does not work is, oops, something happened. So what does, lost a slide. So anyway, what does not work is, like I said, trying to mix product and services in the same company. Absolutely doesn't work. What doesn't work is having a technology team which is very passionate about building the product, but not capable of finishing it. That becomes a very expensive hobby. I've seen that time and again. Many companies have gone under simply because engineers typically love to keep building the product. And we have a saying here that you cannot improve unless you have something. So as a product company DNA, you must learn to have a product before you improve it. So you can't keep improving it without having it, because you will be just burning a lot of cash. And what does not work also is trying to switch between a product, trying to do customs, trying to do specials. And our own example is there that many years ago, we used to lead the market in keypad-based HMIs. And we had a large customer in Holland, and we started doing a lot of things customized for that customer. And we lost almost 2-3 years. And even today, after 15 years, we are still struggling to catch up with those years that we lost. So again, this is all because of lack of strong product management. Hopefully a stronger product manager then would have stopped us from doing that. But be very careful trying to customize it for too many customers, trying to do it for small volumes, trying to not understanding the business aspects of product development and product customization. All this and something that I would not do. Darshan, I think I have a couple of other slides, but I'm out of time. So why wouldn't you open this for any Q&A? It'll be easier to take question and answers to make it more interactive.
Sounds good.
I'm going to just stop sharing my screen.
Please do. Okay. Thank you. So that was fantastic, Ajay. You've covered a lot. And just if I may add, your own story of getting money from customers or product development through stakeholders, right? Validation. That is the classic definition of effectuation. There is it's a form of a decision making framework, right? And some of the most successful entrepreneurs have used this framework rather than what would you say, the logic that is used today in causal logic. You have used a lot of effectual logic. For those who might be interested, you can go on effectuation.org, where what you're doing is, rather than saying these are the means that I need, once I get the means, then I will go towards building the business. You go the other way around. What are my means? What do I have? Who do I know? And then build or go towards the objective. The second part on product development is another area which is quite interesting. And, I was fortunate that at Babson, I had the head of product development of Bose come and take that course for me, right? And that kind of changed my perspective. And then I got some opportunity. We are trying to do the same year at the 1-year postgraduate program in entrepreneurship. But I think product development, product design and development, and product management, both are require a full session, which I think, would love to have you conduct that down the line, if that is a possibility. The first question that I have for you is, you've inherently or implied a very long-term horizon of you, right? Today, what I notice a lot is, maybe it's because of venture capital, maybe it is because of success stories like in 18 months, White Hat Junior gets $200-300 million exit, right? But would love to hear,
So how many stories you want to hear about those who did not get any exit after 60 months?
No, that's fine, right? I just wanted to know your opinion or viewpoint, because I know I've had a similar conversation with Sridhar Shukla, where, the horizon is 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years even, right? So would love to hear, when you were thinking about this, what is it that you were thinking, right? From a timeline perspective.
So I think you need to define a horizon for yourself, okay? But thinking about 20 years, 10 years is, I think, not, I would not recommend that, because 10 saal kisne dekha, it has to be tangible. It cannot be too short term either, So what I would look at is whatever it is that we are trying to build, I would look at where I expect the world to be in that space over, say, the next 3 years, because it does take time to reach and get saturation in your market share, etc. And if that market is growing, then you are in the right space. So that view you have to take anyway. Am I in a growing market, or am I in a shrinking market, or am I in a stable market? I think that is a view that you have to take for sure. Second thing, of course, is that you also need to understand the customer very well. The deep understanding of your customer is very important here. When you take any view, whether it is 3 years, 10 years, or whatever, if you have a deep understanding of the customer's behavior, you have the luxury of taking a longer term view, because you would also climb the ladder with the customer, But if you're not keeping close contact with customers, remember the very first thing I talked about: know your customer very well. Know your customer, not necessarily the user, not necessarily the influencer. Who is your customer? Who are you selling to? If you know them well, you can ride the journey with them. But trying to bypass them and with your own mindset, I think that has not worked. And of course, different people, Darshan, have different abilities to take risks, So obviously, some companies have taken the risk on their own abilities to see the horizon differently, and some have succeeded, some have failed. I think it's very personal choice. We ourselves chose to go with customers and learn from customers what is the next thing they want in the product, what is the next thing they are doing, how can we continue to support them with our products, what should go in our product so that they don't have to look somewhere else, etc., etc. But that's a relatively conservative view, you know.
Yeah.
So
excellent. So here's a question from Atul Bapat. What are the considerations under product management to ensure that the products that are offered on the global market remain consistently competitive?
Yeah, so it's a good question, and I wish there was a simpler answer than just saying that you got to work really hard, and it's not easy, by the way, you know. So what we do is we obviously have a structure as business units. So the business units are accountable for product management, but what we also do is we work closely with a lot of business associates and our own offices worldwide, and we also continue to stay in touch with them, you know. So just recently we found out that some functionality, I mean, we make touch screens. We just found that in Europe everybody's looking at capacitive touch screens. Now we would have never known if we hadn't our own associates over there telling us what the market is looking for, you know. So trying to remain relevant, you know, globally requires a lot of hard work. Okay, it requires a lot of methodologies. So what we do is every year, actually this is one of the reasons I was in the US was to actually look at the roadmap and what is the US market looking for, you know. And we would have a lot of meetings. Every year we do that very ruthlessly. Before the end of March, we actually have a roadmap ready for the next year so that our engineering teams are aware of what is it that they're supposed to build and so on and so forth. But it takes a lot of hard work. Another big challenge, by the way, and I know it's a longish answer, but the standards change. You know, so for example, the safety standards in the US changed couple of years ago. In Europe, the standards for immunity for electronic products continuously change. So it's our job. I mean, I can't blame anybody else. It's our job to stay on top of the standards and continuously evolve our products and make them sustainable. Otherwise, you are thrown out of the market before you know it.
Excellent, thank you. So here's a question from Tarun Kohli, and would love to get your perspective. Do you find starting a business overseas easier than starting in India?
So first of all, I did not start business overseas. I started business in Pune.
That's
the first thing.
But I guess it was more about your opinion.
Sales. Yeah, I think he's probably asking about was it easier to find a customer outside of India. Well, I think a good answer to that is never easy to find a customer, whether it's in India or anywhere for that matter. Finding a customer is as difficult anywhere for that matter. However, the perception of value is different in different markets. Okay, and maybe I actually just said that earlier today to somebody else that maybe we made a mistake of entering the Indian market a bit late, you know, because we are set up as a 100% export company, and we probably should have entered the Indian market a lot earlier than we did, because I believe that as a part of a risk mitigation strategy, you must be strong in your home market. You know, you're less dependent on things that happen globally by doing it that way. So in retrospect, maybe I should have focused more on the Indian market earlier than I did. But was it easier or difficult? I don't think there's a whole lot of difference. Even today, acquiring a new customer in Germany is as difficult as acquiring a new customer in Ghaziabad versus in Pune itself, and so on and so forth. You just have to build the right skill sets and right back-end technologies to support and satisfy customers and deliver value. If you deliver value, I think it works regardless of where the market is. Okay, so geography is kind of irrelevant there.
Sure. So we are at 6 p.m. Thanks a lot, everyone, for joining us this evening. Ajay, this has been a power-packed session. Like I keep saying, you know, the clarity of thought, the way to put it in a very simple way so that the other person understands, and breaking out to the most essential part is something that I'm extremely, I get a lot of takeaways, and I'm sure the audience has got this too. Again, thank you for, being such a supporter to the Flame Center for Entrepreneurship and Innovation. Looking forward to getting your guidance, and I hope some of our audience members can reach out to you for any advice that they might need.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, thank you. It was, I'm glad I could participate. If there is anything I can do to help, if anybody wants to reach out to me, they can always send an email to me. I'll see if I can type can I type my email? Yeah.
Yes.
I'll just type my email address here. So feel free to reach out to me if required. The best way to contact me is email, because I don't use cell phones much, and I don't use a whole lot of other technologies much, so cell phone works out, the mail works pretty well for me. Okay. I just type my email address, so we'll be happy to help. And I think I'll just end by saying that I believe that building a product company and an ecosystem that goes around it, I think is important for the success of our country. So if anything I can do to help in that, we'll be happy to do so. Okay. Great. So thanks for running this, Darshan. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you all. So next Wednesday at 5 p.m. we have Dr. Raman Nanda joining us. He is a person who has a lot of corporate experience, innovation, and advisor to various small and large family businesses. So he's going to walk us through how family businesses can can grow and live in perpetuity. That's the topic. And the applications for the 1-year postgraduate program in entrepreneurship are open for the next academic year for those who might be interested. And again, thank you, Ajay. It's been a lovely evening.
Thanks, Darshan, and say hi to Raman for me. Okay.
Will do.
Okay.
All right.
Thanks.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.